Welcome to our episode 8 discussion. This is the final episode of season 2 of House of the Dragon. We are having a little bit of internet issues, but hopefully we will get through this episode fine. So I'm pretty sure me and Mair have different thoughts on this episode, but you go ahead, Mair. What are your thoughts on this episode?
Okay, so as an overall episode, I like it. As a last episode, I don't. I think it needed to lead up to another, or the last episode, or the like 2 more episodes, because it felt like a very leading episode rather than a closing of an arc, as you would get within a season.
That's fair. I did hear someone say that it felt
But
more like a
on its
mid-season
own,
final.
I did like it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm gonna say the person who said like, "Oh, it felt more like a
Yeah,
mid-season final." I'm like, yeah, I can see that because it does feel
yeah,
like it's going somewhere, and then we're just like stopping and not actually like getting to that point. And in some ways, it did make me wonder why they didn't end it after, say, 7 episodes, because like the Dragon Rider scenes at the end of last episode was like such a high note that I kind of expected this one to be like another high note, and it was just kind of like a lot of plotting. But this had some like really good moments, and I also felt like we had a lot of conclusions to things that were arcs that were started this season. So like I enjoyed seeing the end to all of those. Like overall, I liked the episode. But I guess I don't know. I guess I don't mind it as a season final, but I do see the critique of like, oh, it didn't end on like an epic high note.
they were leading up through all the season to this big thing, like dragon battles. This is going on. Aemond losing his shit, right? Burning Aegon. All this stuff leading up to, and it's got to come to something. Especially like I like the conclusion to Daemon. That went really, really well. Love that shit. But
Oh yeah.
to then lead up and then don't fulfill that promise, it kind of feels like you're handing me a chocolate bar, but going, actually, no, you're not going to have that. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So I think they either should have ended it at episode 7, or they should have done one more episode.
Yes, we could have had like a 9th episode because we're obviously leading to battle.
Yeah.
And they're probably not going to start the next season
Yeah.
in battle. I don't actually know. Sorry, you were kind
There's
of
a lag again. Hang on. Let's see if I can do it on. Oh, wait. Is it better? Is it working now?
I think so. I could hear you fine.
Is there a lag?
No, I
Okay.
don't think
I think there was like a little bit of a lag. Okay. Well, I fixed it. Let's just talk about Daemon, because I liked how that came about.
Oh yeah.
That scene with Rhaenyra, my favourite scene in television ever, apart from like Lord of the Rings, Ride of the Rohirrim, right? Literally my favourite scene. Like how everything came about. Daemon walking through the people and everybody kind of like, what's going to happen? Is this going to be like a massive lovers spat? And then obviously you got like the slimy snake who was trying to lead Daemon to take control anyway. And even the beginning of like the season, Daemon wanting to take control, but Alice's therapy sessions, which I'm just going to call it from now on because I love it, really brought about. Holy shit! Actually, he doesn't want what he's there for Rhaenyra, and especially seeing him in like the Godswood and everything he saw. Oh, and like everything that's kind of it's in the books, as far as I'm aware. But again, this would be something that, because it's written as like a historical text and somebody just recording what's happening, there's a lot of things that is sort of they come up to play that we don't know, or this is what this person, like this chronicle said, this is what this chronicle, they kind of, so a lot of it is up for interpretation, and I quite like that they've added this to leading back to like Game of Thrones. And okay, that is a spoiler for actual Game of Thrones. I'm not going to tell you what I was just about to say, because it alludes to something that happens in Game of Thrones, not in the show, but in the books. So, but I love that side of it, like tying it all together, however loosely, and then Daemon being like, actually, no, you're right. This is bigger than any of us. Just loved it.
I did hear people say that the vision was seem to be following the books more than the show, and
Yeah.
I find that interesting. I definitely want to. I need to read the books and then rewatch it and find out what people are talking
Do,
about.
you do, you do. I am honest to God, I'm in my Game of Thrones era right now. I am struggling so hard not to just re-pick up the books and reread them because holy shit, this is
Yeah,
everything, just everything.
yeah.
But there's so much, just so, the show just screwed up like the other books, like so much they got wrong. But that's
Mhm.
again another rant for another day, probably.
As far as the demon scene in this, I absolutely agree. It was one of my absolute favorite scenes, and I feel like, any criticisms I might have had of the demon stuff in Harrenhal, I'm like, "No, it's fine," because, like, the arc this season, I feel like it ended
Yes.
so perfectly.
Oh yeah, I do still stand by what I said before. Like, I think they dragged it on a bit much because there was no quite seeing the ending in sight. Like, we didn't quite understand why this was here. Like, what was Alice Rivers doing?
Mhm.
But then having it come to that conclusion, that makes it a lot more like it was a good payoff for the promise that they were leading up. I just wish they'd sort of hinted it a little bit early on of kind of where this was kind of going. So if you'd read the books, you might kind of go, oh, maybe it's alluding to this. So you'd have more faith in it a bit more. But that was really good. Blood dripping down from the Godswood. The comet, the dragons, everything, like the White Walkers, the whole lot. I'm like, yes, loving
I
everything.
felt like whenever Rhaenyra showed up at Harrenhal and she, you know, flew her dragon in and then dismounted and like walked up that hill, I felt like it was somewhat reminiscent of Rhaenyra riding out to meet Daemon when in season 1 when Daemon stole the dragon
Yeah,
egg. I was
I
like,
thought
I
that as well.
feel like they're alluding back to that. And
Yeah,
then
it's symmetry.
yeah, and then she comes in, Damon walking through the crowd, and then honestly, I was like, "Is he gonna kneel? Is he going to kneel? I don't know." And then they have this, like,
Yeah.
whole conversation, and then he kneels. It was great. And then Simon Strong at
Yeah.
the end when he's just, like, so
Oh, he's
surprised.
just like so happy though. He looks like a little kid in a park, doesn't he?
I
He's like,
know.
ah. He's just, and bear in mind, it was like him who brought Rhaenyra anyway. Like to what? And mate, like MVP of the whole season, Simon Strong and Helena,
Yes.
but Simon Strong, love him,
Uh-huh.
love him. Oh,
And I felt
amazing.
like it was, like, such an epic moment, and then we switched to him, and I, like, kinda chuckled because I was just like,
I
"Oh my
know,
gosh,
just him like in the
what?"
background, just like so happy. I was like, yes, yes. And like the whole thing, like I knew this was gonna happen. Like everybody, like we kind of knew Damon was gonna kneel, and then like the speaker, and then when he did, it was like a massive cheer moment. But then you get the aftermath of Damon like doing his war cry and everybody shouting war for Rhaenyra. That
Yeah.
is such an iconic moment for both of them. It's
Uh-huh.
like they will fight for Damon and follow him into war, but they're all there for Rhaenyra, and it's like, yes,
Yeah.
oh, that makes me really excited for like. If we had another episode, I'd be like, oh my god, and like it'd be amazing. But I'm hoping they'll start the next season in like a bang and be like fighting war, dragons, head off straight away.
Maybe. I did kind of wonder with this episode because I have heard people saying that they thought this episode like didn't end on a high note and they were disappointed with it. I wonder, like, what if we would have ended the episode right at the demon scene where like everyone's cheering for Rhaenyra
That would
instead
have
of
been a better place. Yeah, yeah, I do
just like
agree.
continuing on?
It was it. I heard somebody say, "Did I just watch a 70-minute show of a trailer for season 3?" It felt like that. It definitely felt like that because I'm like, yeah, yeah, definitely. Because if you ended it with Damon shouting, you're like, okay, she has her army, she has Damon, and she's this is an iconic moment. That would have been fine. You could have just cut to black, and then we would have been like, we want more, and we would have been cheering. We were
Yeah.
on a high. We were all on a high, all like, yes, yes, yes. Because this is the type of show that does this kind of things. It pulls stuff from under you. It makes you want to like scream and shout and be with these characters. And you can't really have too much of a lull coming to an end of a season. End of an episode is fine, but end of a season, you're kind of like, you kind of especially with Game of Thrones, we kind of are expecting a bit more of a like bang, like with how the Game of Thrones ended. The first season, everybody was what the hell, didn't expect, and they were like shocked. And then with this, it was like what? It sort of lulled us a little bit. Like you brought our emotions up, we were cheering, and then it just kind of, oh, okay. You sort of just eased down a little bit. So there's all sorts of things playing out there, and I
Well, and
think,
the
yeah,
the thing about
go.
ending at the Damon scene too is because we've had that arc the entire season. So it's the end of an arc, but it's also
Yeah,
the promise of something else. And I think that's like a really good place to end things. It's like, okay, let's conclude this arc, but this arc obviously leads into like the promise of something else. So we kind of like end on feeling both satisfied and ready for the next thing.
yeah. I did when I first started watching this season. I did expect the last episode to end on Damon dying.
Mhm.
I generally thought that was the direction it was going to go because they were alluding to an Aemon and Damon fight, and I just kind of thought that's gonna, or he's gonna, that's how he's gonna die. But obviously not. And then obviously I read like the end of, not the end of the book, but to the part where I thought it was going to end this season. I was like, okay, he's not. But again, I still don't quite know what's going to happen. Um,
I mean, Alice said he was going to die in Harrenhal. So,
yeah, it just depending. There's a lot of things that can happen that can maneuver him around, but I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Um, I mean, I'll probably have read the book by the next season, so I will know how things play out. But yeah, I just feel very much like almost like a letdown. Like a, oh, I was like, oh, that's how it ended. That was how it was going. Um, because I definitely expected, especially from watching the trailer, sea battle. And I know exactly what
yeah.
battle it's going to be, and I know the outcome of what it was going to be, which would then allude to how the previous season ended. And I was kind of like, it'd be another gut punch, in a
Mhm.
sense.
Maybe they are planning on starting the next season with the battle because I have heard the argument too with like the era of streaming where people binge shows that
Yeah,
maybe they're planning not not just for people watching it week to week, but also for people binging it later. So maybe if they plan on, oh, well, we need to lull here so that way the next episode starts on like battle high. So maybe they are
yeah.
planning on starting the next season that way.
I think they will. I think they'll start a lot of things of moving pieces into place, reminding us where everything kind of is. I really, really wish that they would have done a recap at the beginning of like the first episode and did like a recap of like the previous seasons. That would have been quite nice.
I
But
mean, they always have, like, a little bit of a recap.
I don't see recaps online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Even,
mine
like,
don't have
before this
recaps.
episode, whenever I was watching it, because like, before each episode, they have, like, a little recap of, like, what happened in the previous episode.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because I'm watching it like not live and like downloaded. It doesn't
Maybe.
do the recap. Yeah, because again, my internet is great. um, but I mean, yeah. But what about Alison? I think and Rhaenyra was the next best scene in this for me.
Yeah, I liked this Alicent and Rhaenyra scene a lot better than the previous Alicent and Rhaenyra scene. I
Yeah,
thought this one made a lot more sense.
yeah. But I also understand with because they were leading up to this. I understand why they then said, okay, Rhaenyra will go to Alison. Alison would then turn and say it's too late, and
Mhm.
then it would be a complete about turn. Alison will then go, holy shit,
Yeah.
this is not what I want, and condemning her child.
I
Probably
know,
both
right?
of them, because I mean, she's kind of gonna. I mean, we all know, Aemond being Aemond, is going to get himself killed because Aemond. But then also going like Aegon, kind of going, I'm going to have to. Like, it's a really hard choice. And then Rhaenyra, like standing there, and like you can see the tears in her eyes as well, in both of them, because
Mhm.
Rhaenyra knows what such a question she is asking, and at the same time, she's still asking it. She's like, I cannot spare him. It's not possible. If I want my throne, I'm going to have to do it. Especially because, again, for what they started and everything, they tore the world apart. You can't just kind of go, just go live on the wall. Like,
Yeah.
you can't. So, Helena and her children, I can totally see Rhaenyra kind of going, yeah, sure, I will spare them because, again, they are my kin and, whatnot. But yeah, the others, it's like,
Well, and I think both of them realize, like, some things have gone too far at this point, some things that have been set in motion, like, you just can't stop that and reverse it and pretend it didn't happen.
yeah.
So, yeah, that was an emotional scene, and it was great. I'm gonna say I agree with you that it kind of makes the other scene better
Yeah.
because this scene happened, because almost we needed that other scene. We needed the setup between the two of them in order for, like, this scene to be, like, the payoff.
I think this is mostly what this scene has done is set up with slight payoffs and playing a lot on symmetry
Mhm.
and stuff. So when you look at it as a whole, yeah, it's great. But I think some of the individual episodes and like scenes within these episodes, we're kind of wondering as we're watching it, like, why is it here? Whereas if you do set up and pay off really well, you are not wondering why it's here because it makes sense for both the character and the plot. And then you can then go back to elude it. So that's probably my biggest critique for this as like a whole season. But I generally did enjoy it.
I think the season will be even better on rewatch,
I think
because
so.
yeah.
Yeah, I think rewatch season 1 and season 2 and watch them all together because I think you are right in the whole like the streaming thing. People do just binge, and people and TV producers are catering to that as well. But sometimes I kind of think you have to kind of also don't let that affect the story, and I think that did a little bit here, just a tad, but still really good.
Yes. I think this scene also makes more sense. The Alicent stuff last season or last episode makes more sense.
Yeah,
We almost needed a turning point for Alicent. We needed her to, like, go
yeah,
off and, because we needed to see her change. And yeah, she was mostly cast aside in the small council and all of that, but I think we needed, like, and I think a lot of those scenes in the woods was showing, like, transformation of her. So I think those were needed. So it
yeah.
makes
It's
more
it.
sense now.
Yeah,
I could say, "No, this episode was already really long." We could have had those at the beginning of this episode, and then the payoff would be in the same episode. But that would just make the episode
yeah.
even longer. Like, this was
It
already a very full episode.
it was yeah. It was already quite long, and but I do agree that I think that they personally I liked it if they did it like a different way, like showing her kind of wanting freedom and tasting a little bit of freedom and kind of debating a little bit on what if I did this, and then she comes to like the next episode, and then she's like, oh, she is doing this. But yeah, I do agree. It was nice to watch her yearning for freedom, willing to give up her child, willing to walk away, and just had enough of the bloodshed and everything, and just wants her daughter and her grandchild to just live away.
Mhm.
I thought that was very nice, and I loved this because in the book, Alison is portrayed as not a good queen, not a nice person. They tear her down in the book, right? Um, because again, it's you George makes you think in the book, and stuff like that. So it's historical retelling. The winners kind of write it how they want to, and I love how in this they alluded to that with a Rhaenyra going, they won't like you for doing this. You will be classed as like a really bad queen. They'll hate you. Anson's like, let them write what they want about me, and it's like, yeah, that loved it
Mhm.
so much.
Because at this point, she just cares more about, her sanity and her freedom and ending this than she does about what the histories are gonna say, and I think
Yeah.
that is an excellent character development for Alicent.
Yeah, like Alison and Damon are the strongest arcs in this season.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like it, loved it for
Mhm.
that. Like especially when you look at them like parallel. So like Damon going through his therapy, Alison coming to realize everything isn't how she thought it was, and that she again believed in her duty, but then she's still being cast aside because again she's a woman. Amazing.
I have not read the book, so I don't know where
Yes.
it's going. But what I found really interesting is in Damon's vision, we see Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne. And then
Yeah.
Helena says to Aemond that Aegon is going to be king again. She has seen him sitting on a wooden throne, and Aemond will be dead. Which,
Yeah.
of course, Aemond's concern here is that he's going to be dead. But I'm like, Aegon is sitting on a wooden throne?
That could also be like alluding to like his crippledness and like wheelchair and all sorts of stuff, and
It
like
could be.
building things back up from the ashes as well. You could also allude it to that. There's also things that can allude to. I read some of the chapter headings in the books, and I know how it gets to the points, but I don't know. Well, I know what happens, not how we get to the points, just because the chapter headings.
Mhm.
So if you're reading Fire and Blood, don't skip ahead and read chapter headings. You
Okay.
spoiled yourself. Although I kind of already knew this was going to happen because somebody spoiled me like a few, like 2-3 years ago on what happened to Rhaenyra. Like before House of Dragon, like I was just online and they just like, oh, this happened to Rhaenyra. I was like, oh, okay, that's okay. And then obviously House of Dragon, I'm like, well, I kind of know how it ends in a sense, like how her
Mhm.
storyline, but um, I
I've
don't know how
not
we
been
get there. So
I've not been spoiled on what happens to Rhaenyra yet, but there's other characters I've been spoiled of, like, what happens to them, and I'm kind of mad about it because, like, this one, I was just, like,
yeah,
watching this, and he was analyzing the show, and he wasn't, like, giving indicators that he was going to, like, spoil the book or say anything about the book at all, and then right at the
yeah.
end of his video, he said, "Well, we know this character dies," and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, honestly, this fandom is very big on spoilers. Like, this episode got leaked, like, some clips or pictures got leaked, and, like, I was like, why? It's coming out in, like, 2 days. Why leak it now? And then people kept, like, luckily I didn't see, I just saw people, like, commenting on the leaks, or, like, saying, like, I'm not going to talk about the leaks, because I was like, I just want to go in blind. A lot of people were like that. But yeah, it's very much is stuff like that. And I'm in a bit of a rock and hard place because I've read part of the book. So I'm like, well, what part of the book are you going to talk about? So do I watch this when you're
Right.
going about Fire and Blood? Do I not? So I'm a bit
Mhm.
like, eh. So yeah, stuff like that. But you know,
What I need to decide
it's
now is, like, if I'm reading Fire and Blood before the next season, because like, in some ways, I was like, "Well, I could just watch all the seasons, not knowing what happens, and then read the book," but then I feel like it's probably gonna be spoiled for me if I just try to wait.
I yeah. Well, the trouble is that they add a lot in. So basically, these 2 seasons is like one chapter in the book. That's how it's done because there's a lot set up for interpretation. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things that they can add that like we don't know what Rhaenyra and Daemon do say like behind closed doors because it's a
Right.
maester is chronicling this down, so it's everything that is sort of open to the realm when people are there, people hear about it. So there's all, and another thing that I'm actually going to point out in the books, Rhaenys has brown hair. George is
Oh.
very much like because her mother's an Arryn,
Mhm.
so George is very much like yeah, Targaryens are known for white and purple eyes, but not all the time, and it brings you to question the people who are writing and saying Rhaenyra's kids are bastards. It's kind of like, is it really true, or is it just people trying to stain Rhaenyra? It's one of those kind of it makes you think of because it's not again it's an unreliable narrator, so
Mhm.
you're kind of like what do you believe, and then he makes you think and believe yourself, so that's really good. What I will say about reading the book, read the Game of A Song of Ice and Fire first.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a it's like a fan kind of thing, like if you've read the series it's like as oh okay it's great, but I wouldn't suggest starting with Fire and Blood.
Yeah. No,
Mm.
I'm definitely reading all of the books first. I'm hoping to get through all of them by the end of the year, or at least the next couple by the end of this year. And then
Yeah.
obviously once I finish the series, I'll then like revisit, will I read Fire and Blood now or will I just watch the show? But speaking of their hair color,
Mm.
watching this episode, I was going, surely, surely there are medieval hair bleaches or ways to lighten your hair. It might not get you to blonde or like the Targaryen white blonde, but surely Jace can do something about his hair.
Yes, but then the trouble is, you're always one. If you're going to do that, you're going to have to. Uh, it's okay. You either start it off as a secret from get go, which would mean Rhaenyra doing it from get go,
Mhm.
because babies have been known to be born and then their hair grows a different color as they grow older. That has been known. Um, so she, but then that's her, and then she's going to tell Jace and stuff like this and everything, and that's almost then if it does come out, people then would kind of go, um, are the rumors then true because you're trying to hide it? And then it would, so there's that. And then if Jace did it after the rumors came about and he really wants to, it kind of shows his insecurity because he's hiding because it's like you feel ashamed you've got brown hair. Do you actually believe that you are a bastard of Rhaenyra? That kind of thing coming across. So I like the fact that they kind of left it, and I agree with the choice of leaving it because I think you just look bad from the outside and the realm if you kind of changed it, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, but I feel like he is insecure in this episode about that.
It's definitely very insecure, but his wife to be, what's her name? I don't know.
Baylor.
Um, Baylor, yes. She is the one who really grounds him. I love that.
Mhm.
Love that. Those two, power couple.
Oh, yeah. I love them together.
Yeah, such a power. And like just her being kind of like, and who cares? Get over yourself, basically.
Yeah.
And being like, although I do see Jace's point because I mean, Olaf, like manners, please learn some manners. Like, I mean, I'm saying not having any manners, but read the room.
Mhm.
Like, you're in there eating amongst the queen, and you can just see the look on Rhaenyra's face. You have Adam and Hugh, like, nothing to do with me, mate. We're not like him. He's on his own. I'm like, dude,
He's shameless. Like,
he's
he's
feeling like he's living the high life. Like,
yes.
oh, I've got a dragon, I've got a lord. And like, oh, Silverwing could take on Vega. Bitch, Vega. I, yeah, I think next season he's going to get like a shock to the system of, holy shit, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's not going to be easy life. It's I've got a dragon. I'm fighting a war. There's going to be dragon fights.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
all sorts going on. Like,
I
just because you got a dragon, you're not invincible.
I think all three of them are going to realize that, but obviously I think his character arc's probably going to be the biggest in that regard of like he's living the high life as like lord right now, but he's not really
Yeah.
understanding everything that entails.
No. Adam, on the other hand, again, I think it's because he's served on a ship and he's dealt with like his father, like Lord Corlys, and other lords from and captains and all of that. He knows how to be respectful to royalty in a sense, like nobles and stuff like that. So he kind of knows how to play that game, but he also understands the implication of having a dragon.
Hmm.
So there is that going on, and that was the risk that Rhaenyra is going to take when she did ask, the dragon seeds to come and take dragons, basically, because again, they don't have to show her loyalty. So be interesting to see where that is going to go between Hugh and Olaf. I think in the next season, I think they're going to play a bigger part.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think all of the dragons probably are going to play a bigger part, including Rhaena's dragon.
Yeah,
Um, I mean,
yeah,
we kind of knew at
Syrax.
the end of last episode that she
Yeah,
was going to go try to tame the wild dragon, ride the wild dragon, but that very
the
obviously.
wild one. Yeah, the cannibal. I do find that a little bit kind of reckless and stupid that you're running off to try and tame this wild dragon known as the cannibal, because I think it's the cannibal. Might be a different one. No, it's not.
I
It's
think
sheep.
it's
No,
sheep
no, it's
stealer.
sheep stealer. It's sheep stealer. The cannibal was a different one that's no longer there. The cannibal would eat his own kind. It's a sheep stealer. Um. Anyway, sheep stealer with no provisions and no water. And like just runs off, bearing in mind Rhaenyra charged you to look after her children.
Mhm.
So that's gonna have implications.
Well, and they were obviously, I'm gonna say, in a caravan, all like leaving together, and we never see anyone else. We didn't really know anyone else in that caravan very well, but she just like runs off by herself, and I'm like, at some point, people are going to go, "Where is she?"
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
yeah, she has no provisions, and she's just like wandering around hoping to find the dragon, which I mean, she does in the end.
Yeah, I'm hoping next season's gonna start and open with her. Not necessarily on the dragon, but gaining its trust. Because it is a wild dragon. So something you can't just mount and just bond that dragon.
Yeah.
You have to like gain its trust. The same with any kind of wild animal, you know. So I'm hoping it's going to start with that, and then kind of lead up to like everything else.
I also thought it was really interesting. I mean, all of the dragons look a little bit different in the show, but I thought that one in
I
particular looks
love
like
how they're doing it, like how all of the dragons just look so different. Like Vermithor, oh, powerful, but Vhagar, like that shot with Vhagar, like massive head, and then you go back and you're like, oh, it's like so fierce, but also you can see how old she is.
Mhm.
It's just good. And then you have Silverwing, who's just like slight and nice and fun and just amazing and cute. And then Sheep Stealer, which just looks like a feral fucking thing.
Mhm.
Which like what yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Love how love how they're
Like,
doing all of
I'm
that.
really impressed with the dragons. But, I mean, I like dragons anyway, but I love how they're doing these dragons.
Yeah. They've really nailed the dragons in this. And I wonder if that's why they had it like an 8 episode, not 9 episode. Because like so much dragons in there and so much money went into the dragons.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm sure. I
Yeah.
I wonder how expensive the next season's gonna be for them, because I
Well,
assume there's gonna be a
yeah.
lot of dragons. But
Well, yeah.
we have had, like, quieter moments, even in this, because sometimes
Yeah.
we're like, "Oh, there's dragon, we're gonna have more
See,
dragon scenes," and then they just
yeah.
keep having these quieter
This
moments.
is this is where I think they've really nailed it because a lot of the time that they instead of showing us what happened, they alluded to this happened. So it wasn't like telling us, it's like this happened but off screen. So, like an aftermath of a battle kind of thing. Or they'd
Mhm.
mentioned one line like with the brackets for instance. It was them confrontation and then the next thing was just a bloodshed of like aftermath of the battle. So it's like hinting that this happened, and it's stuff like that they did throughout, which made it very tight, but it also made it better because of it. So nothing you didn't kind of have to kind of go, oh, we'll put this in and kind of drag the pacing down a little bit. It really made it. That's how what I really like about this season.
We also had that at the beginning of this episode with Aemond, burning the entire village,
Yeah,
where we didn't actually, like, we just see the aftermath, we didn't see it happening.
yeah, but also Aemon's wrath though, like burning the small folk. Alicent then calling him out as he's like demanding, dragging his sister, abusing his sister, and being like, "You are going to fight." And she's like, "I'm not burning anybody," and Alicent just like calling him out on his bullshit. I think that moment made her decide to go face Rhaenyra.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was a
Like,
catalyst moment for her.
yeah, seeing Aemond, how deranged and insane he was. Yeah,
I
that's
think
a good scene.
I find it really interesting that Helena just, like, confronted Aemond. I think it was a good thing, but she's like, "I know you burned Aegon. I know that was you." And then I was thinking, I mean, Aemond left Aegon alive because he thinks Aegon's not going to tell, but now he realizes Helena also knows.
Yeah, and then also threatening Helena, and Helena's like, "That's not going to change anything."
Mhm.
Ask it what she sees. Like, it's not
Yeah.
going to change anything. Kill me or what? Like, and calling him out a little bit, and Eamon being a bit like, oh, because there was a reason why, like, Helena just didn't tell anybody. Because, like, so,
Yeah.
obviously, knows. Uh, but then you get that Laris, the Clubfoot, and Aegon. And Lara's really going like, we gotta leave, and Aegon like, no, 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 I'll just arrest Aemond. That's gonna go well. He's the only one with the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just you two fighting. You're also fighting a war, which I love the layers of that. But then where are they going?
I don't know.
Exactly.
But it's really interesting to see that scene right after Alicent agrees to give up her own son. And she's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
Rhaenyra, you can come and kill Aegon." Like, she's crying about it, but she's come to that decision in her head. And then we see that Aegon and Larys are escaping King's Landing. So it's obviously not going to go the way Alicent thinks.
Yeah. That happens in the books, but just slightly different. Um, he still leaves,
Mhm.
but not at that point.
Yeah.
So, but you know, it's there's so much in this season that is just like power move after power move, which is just
I
I loved it.
I also loved the scene. I think this is the first Kristen Cole scene I've loved.
I do
It's when
agree. I do agree,
Kristen
and
Cole and Alicent's
also,
brother.
oh yeah, that amazing calling him out on like sleeping with his sister, but him also going, she saved my life twice. She is the beacon I follow, and seeing him like with her favor as well, still and just holding it all the time. It really makes you understand him a lot better and a lot more. I still don't like him as a character,
Oh, yeah.
but I feel a little bit of sympathy for him. It's like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, I did half forget that he did almost die twice.
Yeah.
Also, I forgot that. But yeah, loving
Well,
that.
and then
Well,
even him talking about the dragons and saying that we are like, when
yeah,
dragons fight, that we're just like dust to them, and in some
yeah.
ways, death would be a release. I loved that whole scene, and then Alicent's brother just, like, deciding to just, like, sit down beside him. I loved it.
Oh
Alicent's brother,
no.
when they introduced him, I thought he was gonna be a character that died off quickly, but he's really come
Yeah.
into his own. I've loved his all of his scenes.
Sorry, my phone's playing up a little bit. Yes, I do agree. Like the acting in this just sold everything, and I think that really brought that character to life. It was just so. I just loved it. My only gripe is where's Dayron?
I think we got a glimpse of Daeron's dragon at the end, flying over the High Tower's army.
I missed that because that was in the trailer. I was like, "Where's Dayron?" But like, you must have just
But that
missed it.
was it was just I mean, with the we got no dialogue, we just got a bunch of armies
Yeah,
moving into place right at the end. It was actually my spouse who pointed that out because he was like, "That was a Hightower's army. What dragon is that?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then he was like, "No,
it's
seriously,
Dayron.
what dragon is that?" And I was like, I do know."
Yeah, yeah. No, it's Dayron. But Otto Hightower, like,
What?
where is he?
What? I mean, this explains why he hasn't sent any messages, but, like, what is
Yeah,
going
but
on?
who? Who? Like, who would take him? Who would do? I want to know. Like, this episode has left me with so many questions that I'm just dying to know the answer to.
Yes. I
But
think that was the point of that auto scene right at the end because we haven't seen him for a while.
yeah, yeah, that was really good. The other thing that I just found so much fun was the Lannister and Essos
Mhm,
just fighting in the mud with this woman, mad, insane woman, and
mhm.
she's like punches her really hard, and she's going, "I like you," and then
She
I want to have children with you. What?
yeah,
Like,
she reminds me of Asha. I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
she's the House of the Dragon version of Asha."
yeah, she does, and it's just insane. And what makes it even more comical is the Lannister just does not know how to act.
Mhm.
It's just like, I don't. You want to have children with? How many wives do you have? It's just like, seem bumbling. It's quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, even the introduction whenever he's, like, sweating in the lodge and then he's, like, he's
Yeah.
going, Ava's gonna hate me for this, but okay." You know, like,
Yeah.
you can see he's clearly out of his depth.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was just fighting. Oh, the whole time they were fighting in the mud, I was like, ugh. Ooh.
Yeah.
I just like I could imagine like where that would end up.
Oh, I know.
Like there was no part of you that you just wouldn't be saturated,
Mhm.
and you just kind of the best thing to just jump in a river, clothes and all. For that,
That's
that's all I could think of.
probably what they did afterwards. They had to clean up somehow.
Probably, I
So they probably
really, really want to see the behind the scenes for that.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. But I am
I've
hyped for the next season. Definitely.
Yeah, I've seen some chatter online that, like, I think it's Thailand in Essos was, like, some people's, like, least favorite part of this episode, and I can kind of understand that because it did feel like the least connected, but I do feel like
Yeah.
it added some lighthearted moments to this episode.
So I didn't mind it because as soon as that opened up, I went, I know where this is leading to. So, but then obviously I've read the book. So I think people who've read the book will kind of go, oh, this is this moment. But if you haven't read the book, you kind of go, what are we doing here? What's the point of this? Because the barricade hadn't been, it was a big part of like the everything happening in King's Landing and all of that, but it also wasn't like that well addressed. Sometimes you sort of it faded into the background a little bit, so you kind of half forgot, and then you kind of half. There was no sort of mention of really. I can't remember if it was mentioned or not. It was forgettable if it was sending somebody off to sort of stop the blockade.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the blockade there. It's like, well, what are we going to do about the blockade? And there wasn't really like a scene discussing that. That kind of makes you think, oh, that is like a real problem. Uh, to then lead up to this scene, then you're like, oh, this must be what they're doing. But if you've read the books, you kind of know what they're doing. You're like, oh, well, at least
Yeah,
I
that
was.
makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought they were fun. I didn't necessarily have a problem with them, those scenes in there. It was just I was just saw some chatter online talking about it, and I did go. I mean, it does connect the least to the rest of the story, so I get that.
yeah, it does. But also, I think because of how last episode ended, they probably expected something bigger to open this episode, and then we spent so long there, and then back and forth, and then fighting in the mud, and then the dinner, and then them sailing, and then they're all, you know. Do you have any more thoughts on it? Because I don't think I do.
I don't. I We've gone over everything that was on my notes, so this is a good place to end it. Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you for watching us discuss House of the Dragon. It's been fun. I look forward to next
Yeah.
season. And
Can't wait.
if you want to see any more of our discussions on any of the other episodes, I will have the playlist linked. And I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading.